Good afternoon, everybody. I want to make a quick video here to talk about a couple things from the Broncos game on Monday night that we've seen over the last day or two that I think are interesting. We got a little, you could call it a little celebratory, I guess. You got to give credit where credit is due. And here's an opportunity to do so with these two things I'm going to talk about here. So, two kind of independent topics, but they're both good. They're both positive developments, and they're encouraging for the immediate and maybe even distant future of this team. So, first thing that I want to talk about is I think most people know this by now, but Uchenna Nwosu was honored for the great game he played Monday night by getting named NFC Defensive Player of the Week. If you watch that game, you would know that Nwosu was one of our best players for sure. He put a big effort forward in terms of the stats and then the impact beyond the stats. So he, of all the great defensive players in the NFC, and there were many over this last week, he got named Player of the Week. If you look at the stat line, you can certainly see why. 7 tackles as an edge defender is impressive. He had a sack. And on that sack, you can see he drops into coverage on that play. He realizes Wilson's scrambling out to his left, and he gets out there to make the sack, which not necessarily an easy play, not a play that every player can make. He had 2 plays in the backfield. Obviously, you had the sack, and then you had one other tackle for loss. He forced one fumble, and I believe he was involved in forcing the other fumble as well. He didn't directly force it, but he was involved on the play. He had a pass breakup, a pass deflection, or a pass defense, or however you want to qualify it. And beyond just the sacks and beyond just the actual tackles, he, according to some sources, had 4 or 5 pressures in that game. And he had that one play where he blasted Wilson right as Wilson got the ball out in the red zone. He had a couple plays where he just times the snap count perfectly. The Seahawks did talk a little bit about how they were able to time the snap really well because the Broncos were forced to go to a silent count because of the crowd noise, which, hey, that's awesome to hear. That's something that we've kind of been getting away from in Seattle over recent years, it seems like. So, Nwosu, Player of the Week for the entire NFC on defense. Seems like he deserved it to me, right? Like he's got the stats, he's got the big plays, he's also got the little plays that don't show up on the stat sheet, but clearly had a big impact on this game. So shout out to him. And not only is this great for this one game, it's great long term. And I say that because when we signed Nwosu this most recent offseason, I wasn't really sure if he was a 1 year guy or a 2 year guy. We gave him the 2 year contract, but relatively easy out after 1 year. And I was thinking to myself, good player, but is he a stopgap for 1 year while we try to get our blue chip pass rushers together? Or is he actually somebody who can be part of a great defense down the line? Because wasn't thinking this defense was going to be great. Of course, so many young pieces, so many guys with potential that is unrealized. But could Nwosu be part of that great defense in hopefully 2023 or maybe even beyond that? And it depended on who you asked. Some people really liked him, some people only kind of liked him. And after one actual meaningful game where you got to say he was maybe our best overall player on the whole team, even. I don't know if I'd go that far, but he's in the conversation. Off to a good start. And on a night where Darrell Taylor didn't really impress a lot of people that much, Nwosu, not only was he the most impressive edge on this team, not only was he the most impressive defensive player on this team, but you got to call him in the running for best player overall. And with that, you also have to say, hey, maybe this guy's more than just a 1 year stopgap while we hit the draft next year for his replacement. No, maybe this guy's a stud. Maybe he just maybe it was just a long development over in LA, and now that he's hit here, it's year I think 5 for him. I think it would be, yeah, year 5. Maybe we got something special. Time will tell, but awesome week 1. He deserves to be player of the week for the NFC on the defensive side. The second thing I want to talk about is this chart here. This was posted, I believe, yesterday by several sources. Shout out to Establish the Run, which is where this originally comes from. Basically, it shows which teams are running the ball and passing the ball more than you would expect. This isn't just, oh, well, this team ran the ball a lot. This team passed the ball a lot. No. It's looking at the situations that your team that teams find themselves in and how often they deviate from what would be expected based off typical frequencies and down and distance and game situation, things like that. So it's not just, oh, that team threw the ball a lot. No, it's that team threw the ball a lot relative to how often they found themselves in obvious passing situations. And that makes it way more interesting. And as you can see, the Seahawks pretty close to the pass-happy side of the chart. If I move my head a little bit, you can see that the teams that were most under-expected for pass rate are the Bears and Niners, which makes sense, right? Like, the Bears and Niners played in a monsoon. You wouldn't want to pass the ball a lot because it's hard to pass the ball when it's raining like that. So that makes sense, and that's kind of how you derive meaning from a chart like this, right? Like, this chart is not going to account for weather, but it theoretically accounts for everything else. So you can see the Dolphins, by the way, way above expected, so good for Mike McDaniel. I really like him. I think he's going to be a really good coach. Really intrigued to see how things work out in Miami for him. But the interesting thing for us here is that the Seahawks were in the top 6. They were actually 6th. So we passed the ball about 8% over expected. And this is going into a game where a lot of people, not only did, myself included, did we expect we were going to run the ball a lot. I expected we were going to run the ball maybe even a little more than we should. I wanted to run the ball a lot because I believe it is the strength of the team this year, and I believe we were attacking the weakness of the Broncos defense by running the ball. But it seemed like both sides were aware of that. The Broncos decided to play the run very aggressively, like me and the Hawks Nest were talking about this last night on the Colby Parkinson touchdown. Denver basically has 9 men up in the box, and it's a perfect play call against that kind of defense. And it seemed to me like the Seahawks went into that game thinking, okay, Denver's missing a starting linebacker. Denver, their run defense looks to be maybe the weak spot of that defense because their defensive line doesn't look like it's going to be great playing against the run. We're missing Damian Lewis, who is one of our best run blockers. Let's air it out. And you got to say, that first half, we really outsmarted the Broncos defense. And we should have scored 24 points. The only reason why we didn't is Geno slipped on a QB sneak. But it should have been 24 points. And then you see at halftime, the Broncos hit you with those halftime adjustments, and it works a lot. It doesn't work nearly as well. But for that first half, it seemed like we had them off their game. They were expecting us to run the ball a lot, just like I was, just like a lot of people were. And we were hitting them with a lot of passes in situations where you really could be running the ball. A lot of teams run the ball in 3rd and short, 2nd and short, 1st and 10, situations like that. And we were like, no, we are airing it out. And for that first half, it worked. Halftime adjustments stunted it a little bit. But you got to say, Pete and Shane, mostly Shane because he's the offensive coordinator, came up with something that would really take that out. So shout out to those guys. They came up with a game plan that I think anticipated what Denver was going to be expecting and threw them for a loop. A lot of passes in situations where you would expect a run most of the time. Maybe it's because Kenneth Walker was out as well on top of the Damian Lewis thing. Whatever it may be, it worked for a half. You got to say it worked for that first half brilliantly. Second half, yeah, the adjustments. It seemed like maybe Denver had a meeting in that halftime locker room and we're like, okay, we got to reevaluate the way we're playing because they're not coming with the same stuff we thought they were going to come with. But for the first half of the year, with this new quarterback that doesn't have huge expectations, pretty good. All right, so let me know what you guys think about that. Just two kind of separate topics that I wanted to quickly cover here because, separate though they may be, they're both very encouraging, right? Nwosu was a guy who I thought could go either way in terms of being just a stopgap versus being a stud. And for one game at least, he looked like a stud. And we also have evidence of a game plan that was not just built around the players that you had, but it was also built around what the other team was expecting you to do. So let me know what you guys think down below. I'm going to get out of here. Go Hawks. Probably going to be live on Twitch later tonight. We'll see. And yeah, enjoy it, man. Other future weeks may not be as fruitful as this one, but enjoy the fruits while they are present.